Young were both spotted at last year's WrestleMania takeover, and everyone was buzzing about that, seeing those two guys in one night. And obviously they just had Nakamura debut, so it all seemed very good. But it looks like they need that sort of injection again. Who they get there, I'm not so sure. But I don't think it's terrible. I just think we've been so used to seeing NXT do so well that they've done so well that WWE has literally pinched all that they can get for their main roster. The only unfortunate thing a lot of the time is they don't really do anything with those guys, and you think, what a waste of time sometimes. But that's the way it is. Of course, the only other match that has been announced so far, Matt, is the women's title match. And again, another wrestler that could easily go up to the main roster is Asuka. I mean, really and truly, Matt, if they lost her, though, who else is there? I mean, they seem like heavily reliant on Nakamura and Asuka at the moment. As far as real sort of credible names go, those two sort of hold that power, don't they?
Yeah, and it's becoming a bit of a problem because Asuka has a great record there. Her undefeated streak is like something we haven't seen for quite some time. So I don't really want to see that end. Of course, the only way to end that is to sort of have her promoted to the main roster and have her relinquish that belt without losing. And I think that would be the best way to protect her. And although they've done a good job of trying to introduce new, strong female characters, it feels like they're really trying to make us believe in Ember Moon. And although she's got a fantastic finishing move, I haven't really been completely sold on her. And for me, I would be more inclined to believe someone like Nikki Cross or the combined efforts, of Peyton Royce and Billie Kay. I'm not really feeling the Ember Moon thing. I mean, just because someone wears contact lenses doesn't exactly make them the next big thing.
Yeah, I think you've got to get off that training. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, obviously they've got time, 3 more weeks to try and get something sorted. You'd expect at least a good 4 or 5 matches. A lot of rumours going around, Matt, that Seth Rollins and Triple H will do some kind of spot on the NXT show, like they've done last time. Which, again, it's got its positives and it's got its negatives if you start doing that. Because I would rather them be kept quite separate, but if they feel that's the way they got to go, then perhaps that's the way they got to go. Okay, before we move on, folks, some sad news that came in. Not the most world famous wrestler, but certainly if you like me, and I'm sure Matt's seen it in the past. Beyond the Matt, I'm sure you've seen that documentary. Before, some sad news. I'm sure you remember the wrestler in it, Matt, the Dennis Stamp, who, of course, he became the most sort of famous, iconic moments in that entire documentary. He was, of course, seen with Terry Funk. Unfortunately, he passed away just yesterday. I had loads of emails asking about him. Was he really sort of a failed wrestler and all the rest of it? Did the documentary portray him as a sort of worse off than what he was? But yeah, poor old Dennis Stamp, he was battling with cancer. I was just reading up on the notes just to give you a sort of formal thing here. Stamp had been suffering from cancer at the age of 68. Stamp was an amateur wrestler star in both high school and college in Minnesota, and broke into Vern Gagne's in AWA in 1971, and he also was the Rookie of the Year in the AWA. He worked a number of territories through the 70s and was best known in West Texas, where the promotion favoured legitimate wrestlers. He also had a good run in California. His full-time career ended with the death of the Amarillo territory at the time, but he would work through the 80s as an enhancement talent on both WWF and the AWA television shows. And yeah, of course, in the movie Beyond the Mat, Stamp was shown talking to Terry Funk, hoping to be booked. Of course, that's what his famous thing is there, Matt. I'm not booked. Everyone knows that from the film of Beyond the Mat. And retirement match, of course, that he was involved with when Terry Funk went head to head with Bret Hart in the documentary. and he was referee that night. So Stamp was a solid worker who held titles in a number of promotions during the 70s. So yeah, really sad news on him. But I got a flood of emails. So it just goes to show how popular he became, even if people didn't know him from the 70s. Just from that documentary, was like he's the most iconic thing about that series now, and everybody loves those moments of Dennis Stamp in it. But yeah, sad news there on that one, certainly. And when you think about that documentary, especially, it probably was the first documentary I ever saw where they really pulled the curtain back on that one. So yeah, sad news there. Also, just to give everybody an update, I mentioned Kurt Angle will be backstage tonight on SmackDown. Definitely don't expect him to be on camera. I think that they're just shooting some behind the scenes stuff about Kurt Angle kind of meeting up with a few of the guys backstage, and I'm sure it'll get sort of published somewhere else down the line, but it's just doing some pictures and things of that nature. But what is positive, Matt, is it looks like, if they're doing those kind of things, it looks like they're taking him serious as possibly an on-air character at some point. But I think it'd be a bit ridiculous now to use him at this juncture. Matt, before we end the podcast, because we have gone a while tonight, just wanted to talk about other promotions just briefly, and of course, and before we actually get that, I should have mentioned, I don't know if we have mentioned it, but myself and Matt, we will be going to Raw in the UK when it comes over when is that, Matt? It's May, isn't it? When we're both heading there. We're keeping positive on it because we're going there and we're hoping to get something good. But Matt is actually also going to SmackDown as well. So I'm interested on the whole. You know what I'm really interested to see, Matt, is this famous coming out doing the rope business for these cruiserweight matches. I just want to see how that works. Is that a time I'm just going to look at everybody walking off to go and get a drink or something? Is that the cue? I'm very keen to see how that works during the live show. But Matt, just to talk about other promotions now, I know you mentioned to me, I still haven't seen it, I've got to be honest, but you mentioned you saw the new look TNA. How was the presentation, and what was the positives for it, and what was the negatives that you saw?
They've tried so many times to rebrand it now, it's just becoming a bit of old hat, isn't it? Like, what? It's another week where you're trying to rebrand the show, is it? Mm-hmm. And, who's coming out this week? And although they had some old faces coming out and, and trying to sell you on the fact that it's going to be something new, you do kind of get that feeling that it's the same old TNA with the same old ethics. Particularly, given away by the fact that Alberto El Patron or Del Rio, whatever you want to call him, he comes out and he captures the TNA title. It's almost like in the contract. If you sign a TNA contract and you're a top talent, you're guaranteed a heavyweight title. Yeah. And it comes at the expense of Bobby Lashley's kind of reputation as their most dominant kind of superstar. He just has to lay down and let the new guy walk all over him. Mm-hmm. And I don't really respect that. I think that things should be earned. And the fact they had EC3 come out there and throw his name in a hat, and he was disregarded, just overlooked. I don't think that's the way it should be done. EC3 has established himself in TNA. That's where he's made his real name for himself. He should be the one that they're trying to build their company around right now, him and Lashley. Mm-hmm. But, if they want to look to new guys, then that's great. But I just feel like that's the old TNA. That's the way that they used to look at it. And I'm not getting a good vibe from it so far, especially when they're writing, the Hardys had to go, and they had to go to Ring of Honor, and that was their right. But to be kind of written out, it felt kind of rushed. Yeah. It felt like they had plans for the Hardys, and then the way they wrote them out was like, okay, they've gone now, we need to come up with something in 30 seconds, and that's what they did. Yeah,
I heard, Matt, that they used some old footage of the Hardy thing, and they've done they've been deleted. They put it up. Is that right? Is that on the episode that you saw?
Yeah, that was, and it definitely felt like it's like, okay, so we've got some footage of the Hardys here back at the compound, and they're doing their thing, and they're going to continue the expedition of gold. But then it doesn't even explain, like, it's just like, oh, they were deleted from all space and time, except they're not, because if you watch Ring of Honor, they're there, you know. There's no continuity with this, it's just, come on, what are you trying to sell us?
Yeah, pretty bad. The other thing with TNA as well is that the deal with Spike is not working out. It looks like that's gone really down the drain. So that one's gone for taking a worse. It's really difficult to see sometimes with TNA. I mean, financially they're more stable at least. You can put that right, but you know that name. I just feel like even Anthem Sports that bought them out. I really felt like there's no value in TNA's name. I just think buy the promotion, yes, but maybe you need to change everything. Just get rid of that TNA name and start again.
Apparently, when they came out, they said TNA is dead. TNA is no longer the promotion.
Right.
It's now Impact Wrestling that is the promotion, but it's still the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we had that a while ago as well, where they just called it Impact Wrestling. So I don't quite get that one. Well, to something that's very inconsistent, to something that's always been consistent, Ring of Honor this past week. Great news to see Christopher Daniels finally winning the big one, and some great scenes there. Haven't seen the match itself, but I heard really great things about the match. And you know, I think it just cements more Ring of Honor as a more legitimate pro wrestling promotion, a much more old school theme to it. That, you know, here's a guy who's just been with Kazarian, he's been a tag team, yet, you know, he's still good enough to win a title. I just think it just speaks so much good volumes that they're willing to do that. But yeah, well deserved for Christopher Daniels, and he's another guy, Matt, that used to be in TNA. But let's face it, when did TNA ever say to Christopher Daniels, "You have the ball and run with it"? You know, you have a go. A guy that's not really been featured ever in WWE. They could have had their own star. Really wasted that opportunity. But yeah, finally, Christopher Daniels winning it at Ring of Honor. What did you think about that, Matt? The idea of him doing it and winning it, and you know, things are looking quite positive at the moment for Ring of Honor in general. But you know, the idea of Christopher Daniels being their champion at the moment.
Well, you know, I've got to tell you, it's great for the real hardcore wrestling fans because, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but, you know, like, I wasn't with Ring of Honor at the start, so my mind might be kind of fuzzy, but Christopher Daniels was main eventing, like the first kind of Ring of Honor pay-per-views. Yeah. So that kind of brings it full circle to the Honor kind of thing. That, you know, like, why should he not be their champion? Because, you know, he's helped like build the groundwork for this company. And you know, you're looking at other companies and you're seeing people like Goldberg becoming champion when they did nothing for WWE. But you know, Christopher Daniels helped do so much for Ring of Honor, so it's a great way to honour that and respect the contribution that he's made. Yeah,
absolutely. You know, it's fascinating when you look at the list. Like, this is how good Ring of Honor has done with their title history, and why their title would mean so much more, even so much more than some of the WWE titles, in fact, is when you look at, you know, how long that promotion's been around, but just how, you know, how kind of credible they've kept it, really. And, you know, like if you go back, I mean, to 2002 when it was, you know, first come on the scene, you had the likes of Low Key Matt, that was the first at the time, and he actually defeated Christopher Daniels, Spanky, which of course is Brian Kendrick, Doug Williams in a fatal 4-way 60-minute Iron Man match that night. You've had the likes of Samoa Joe as the champion. He had a run in 2003. Austin Aries, of course, who's now in the WWE. He had the belt in 2004. In 2005, CM Punk. Then we had the likes of James Gibson in there. We had Bryan Danielson in 2005. Who else we got? Nigel McGuinness, Jerry Lynn, back to Austin Aries, Tyler Black, Seth Rollins, Roderick Strong. I mean, it's a who's who of names. Kevin Steen, of course, is in there. Jay Briscoe, Adam Cole, Jay Lethal. I mean, some incredible names there, Matt, but they've done such a great job at protecting that title. I think there's so much more value